Algeria, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Egypt, Georgia, Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, Libya, Moldavia, Morocco, occupied Palestinian territory. We have today an associate state to United Nations, Syria, Tunisia, and Ukraine. The Commission started in 2003, pointed this type of policy, was in March 2003, was followed by a strategy papers on the European Union neighborhood policy. The main things which is really important to me is that this policy are set up like a bilateral project between EU and all these member states. Another pillar of this neighborhood policy is the Union of the Mediterranean, Euro-Mediterranean Partnership, and the third is Black Sea Synergy. On me, the Union for Mediterranean is a failure. When the Union started this approach with a country belonging to the Mediterranean, they consider that can be relevant in a type of society who are deeply different. If we look to what's happened in Europe and what type of member state, national member states we have. It's a failure. After Arab Spring, when the people are conscious that the relevant value of EU was almost impossible to be implemented and to be shared by the population in this area, we have this revolution, and we expect after this revolution to start a really democratic way. In terms of security, on me, will not be a really democratic way. Because look what's happened in Egypt just now, the current evolution. Look what's happened in Tunisia. In Tunisia, if we spoke about the gender issue, the human rights, we consider a starting decrease of a previous achievement. Black Synergy, it's only on paper. Nothing concrete was done in this period. We can discuss to some success on the Eastern Partnership. But on me, this project is not entirely a successful project. At the beginning, I put a question first to me, but I raised this question also to you. 2004 was too late or too early to start this type of policy on behalf of European Union? And why the European Union was motivated to start this partnership project? I believe, if you remember, 1999, 2000, 2001, a huge amount of theoretical approach of globalization. Remember the first book of Friedman, Lexus and Olive Tree, when we discuss about what's happened with this world. Remember about the Jacques Attali and other European theoreticians who spoke about a global world and about a global economy. I understand that Europe was motivated to start with this policy, not only because we have an ambition to share with other countries the same values, who are the global values, are not specific European values. Remember Tocqueville about the democracy in America, are the same values for a global democratic approach and a global governance. But also because you understand at that time, if you remain alone, can be a sort of enclave in a global world. Because EU is a regional organization. And the life of this regional organization are not really good in this time. Remember what's happened in Latin America, in Asia, with ASEAN and Mercosur. And you see that they start to become in the sort of decline, not be more relevant on this. But basically, I believe this neighborhood policy, it's one liberal policy, because sharing the same values, sharing the common goal, and work together to implement this, it's a liberal approach. The main expression of this type of policy was the freedom of expression and the democracy. Certainly, there are many other values, as I believe that you know and you share this type of value. It is no coincidence that these are also at the core of our liberal idea. We, as liberals, should very well know that the very basis of development is a peaceful environment, where people are free to pursue their happiness. But people are free not only to pursue their happiness, to share our economical interest. And I think in this to market economy. Set aside the crisis for now and just see the EU as this space of freedom, security, and justice. There is this space for freedom. Still we face some problem related to freedom of expression, freedom of association, freedom of media. Not in all the in our neighbor states, but even in the member states of European Union and my own country, it's a type of model. I put brackets in this model. When the freedom of expression and association, this freedom of media are not in a good shape. The main problem is the freedom of media on me today, because we have a freedom of media in a market economy, usually business-oriented. The rating, look what's happened to the TV station. They look all the time for the rating, not for the values, or for the quality of the materials, of the show, of the all behavior they develop. And if there is a polarization in terms of ownership of the media, we can really speak about the freedom of the media. Certainly, I believe the only things who save us is the internet, where we are free to share our opinion. Will be on me the next media. It will be a challenge, a provocative situation, because in the future, the internet can replace this classical traditional media that we have today. However, a fact understood best also by the liberal is that everything is connected, and that protection doesn't work in the long run. The EU cannot function for long in peace as an enclave, as I say. And for this reason, we set up this neighborhood policy. Our main values were spread in this area. In countries like Armenia, Azerbaijan, not certainly in Belarus, in Ukraine, I consider that even in Ukraine, if we have discussion today, and you know what's happened with this country, we share the similar value. All of us, we want rule of law. There are many countries who the freedom of expression is privileged, respected. Certainly, the economical value are not shared in the same manner in all this country. because unfortunately there is still exists, and in the future will be accentuated, a huge gap between the economic situation of each country. EU in one side and other country belonging to the partnership, Eastern Partnership. This can create many problems to the successful policy. Also, I want to point one thing related to the common standard, because the free and fair election, what we ask all the time inside of the Eastern Partnership, are a classical standard, OSCE, ODIHR, but theoretically the election, I believe, always here in EU and in the neighbor country are not free and fair election. Sometimes are manipulated. We can face some obstruction to different government, but generally speaking, we can have free and fair election, even formal. There are some countries, and I mean Azerbaijan in Eastern Partnership, who play this democratic approach of free and fair election. In the reality, even we have diverse parties, they are a monolith. I don't know it's bad or it's good for the country belonging to the former Soviet Union, but I believe that for this type of country, we can agree that they have huge problem with the statality. In terms of geostrategic approach, this country in East are close to our neighbor, big neighbor, Russia. After the failure of the communist regime in '89 in almost Eastern country, who belong today to the EU, the wall between Russia and the EU was direct on the border of this country. This neighborhood achieved for us also, I'm a little bit cynical, but direct, a kind of couloir between Russia and the EU. Even today on me, we can have another war, and we try to work together in a very friendly approach. But for this country in East, the huge problem is to achieve the statality. Because the influence of the Russia, who lost an important amount of resources in Azerbaijan, in Kazakhstan, in the other country, it's really difficult to play a really democratic game. I'm the rapporteur on Turkmenistan, the shadow rapporteur on Caucasus, and I understand very well that the Russia tried to recuperate the influence in the area. This is another issue that I consider relevant in terms of how successful was our neighborhood policy. Last but not least, because I expect your question, I believe we must change a little bit, not the direct relation, the bilateral relation, but we must change a little bit our vision. Because today, EU is not able to support as long as necessary this type of policy. We face a huge crisis. On me, it's not really an economical crisis, it's a crisis of leadership, but we need changes inside the EU. We, the liberal, we privilege this federal approach, because otherwise will be difficult to face and to play in the global world, with global actor. But this takes time. 2016, when we start a new debate on what will be Europe, will be crucial. But until this mandate, 2014-2016, we keep this neighborhood policy in the same topics, in the same way. I don't know if it's the way to have a successful cooperation inside of Eastern Partnership. I expect your opinion.
And post-Soviet 6 countries?
Not really Mediterranean. I'm not involved in this.
Okay, for all foreign affairs.
Caucasus and Central Asia, yes.
Okay, so let's speak about Caucasus and the other 3 countries. I want to ask about your double standards or your privilege and the weak foreign policy of EU. Why you can have one relation, one policy for Belarus, because Lukashenko is a dictator, and you do other things with Armenian president or Azerbaijan's president. So what is the difference? Because the same situation, totally the same in Azerbaijan and Belarus. The same in Armenia. But Lukashenko is, for you, is a dictator, but Armenian president and Azerbaijan president is a partner for you. The same situation that you made in the Mediterranean for Mubarak, for Ali. So you first you are making your partner dictators. Then 10 years ago you are doing helping the others do the revolution, and now you see what happened in Arab world. You changed the 2-3 government in 2-3 republics, and you are doing the same and worse even in Syria. Islam is coming to the power by your financing, by your support, by your political support, because many, almost all the European countries' presidents recognized opposition of Syria as a power. But they are part of, I was living there, I know the opposition and the government. They are part of Muslim Brotherhood. And you are supporting them, and in some years you will have another dictator there. So I don't really understand what are you doing. The same, okay, let's talk about Armenia. You told that the main problem is freedom of expression, freedom of media. And you were talking about the elections. When we have elections in Ukraine, some of the EU member presidents going there some years ago, staying with the people in the Maidan and supporting the opposition, supporting the people who are fighting for their rights. For example, the president of Poland and some others went to Kiev, stayed some nights with the opposition, with the people, and were fighting for their rights. In Armenia, during the last presidential elections, it was totally falsified because everybody was sure, everyone that the opposition leader won during the elections, and had about 80% of ballots. But they changed the results, and the president now we have, he became a president because he had support from Russia and from EU. Because the observers from EU declaring that this is even one step forward to the democracy. But during the demonstrations, during the election, 10 people were killed by police. About 200 people, the leaders of opposition, were in prisons. We had even right now we have political prisoners from our party, young leaders, and you are continuing to cooperate with them. He is not dictator for you. I want to understand this balance. Lukashenko is bad, the others, why?
I believe that the question is addressed to me, not in my capacity to decide this type of polity. And I was, because I don't decide as this double standard. I want to confess you something. When we joined European Union, after a long term of accession or preparing for accession, I was really impressed about this double standard. For us, for Romanian, was something important to be clear, to have the same standard with all, but what I see here, a real double standard. Not only with others, but inside of you. This start to happen. At the beginning, the Union, when the founder, and I want to invoke the Jacques Delors, Adenauer, Schuman, have this vision, a clear standard for all, a mutual understanding. But unfortunately, in the global way, what is important for many here are not really the value, are the interest. You ask me why Belarus it's considered, why Lukashenko is considered a dictatorship, or the other no. Because of energy and other important things. This is the sincere answer, believe me. For this reason, I spoke about this, this necessity to change the leadership of the Union. This explains on me the problem that we face, like Union today. Because when we are based at a value, the main issue is to respect this value all the time. It's what keep together united. But when a former European Constitution was rejected by France, and they try to find a solution, and this solution was Lisbon Treaty, who is against to the fundamental treaty of the Union, the problems come even for us. The respect of the rules, the same rule for all, it's a key issue if you want to be successful inside of organization, but not only in the organization, even in the country. This is the main problem. We have the problem with Ukraine, because here we are three important political groups. Madam Tymoshenko belonged to EPP, and EPP put a lot of pressure in order to release Madam Tymoshenko. But no one thinks to other political prisoners in Armenia, in Ukraine, in order to be supported like Madam Tymoshenko. I'm asked all the time why. Because I am in favor, do not intervene on behalf of European Union in the legal process, in the rule of law. These belong to each country, how they decide to administrate the justice. This another double standard, how we judge the people. If they are friends, belong to our family. If no, they are in a position can be easily considered like dictatorship.
We would try at the end of the session find some similarities and differences in the regions based on the presentations. And probably also discuss a little bit on the political and analytical skills of each team, the strengths and weaknesses, and just to learn a little bit more practical, give a little bit practical approach to this session. It doesn't, by no means, don't take it as a like heavy training that you have to get a mark and there's no winner and no loser. Well, I would then suggest to start with Ukraine. All right, and if you can listen for a second. Also, what is a good idea probably, please take the notes of each presentation. What do you think? Try to also find the similarities between the countries and the major differences that after we can debate over those topics. All right? Yep. I was saying that try to pay attention to the presentations and take notes. And also for the technical or analytical means, like it's more practical session. Well, from now on, it's Renaldus who's going to speak. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. As Iris has introduced me already, my name is Renaldus. I'm a policy advisor on foreign affairs of this group, of the group of Alliance of Liberals and Democrats for Europe. My primarily focus is Eastern Partnership countries, and I do write the texts and resolutions and positions of the group on each and every country in Eastern Partnership, as well as I advise the president of the group on the foreign affairs and specifically on the countries of Eastern Partnership. So I'm happy to be here with you to listen to your presentations and as well as to offer my humble opinion and comment on what you are about to show. And I understand that I should now turn to Lyubov, offering her the floor to take over from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So good day to everyone. It's a true pleasure for me to present today's the presentation on Ukraine's assessments on the path to the European integration. Basically, we all will start with 4 positions which were proposed for us, and we will try to go through the points as my country in the EU, public opinion about EU, perspectives on becoming a member of EU, and problems that EU doesn't recognize. So to start with Ukrainian case, of course we have to mention that there is a quite intensive political dialogue with the European Union, and it certainly starts with the declaring of Ukraine's independence. Since 1994, Ukraine already signed the partnership and cooperation agreement and still has its force. Since 2005, Ukraine was covered by ENP. In 2007, the negotiations on the association agreement started, and they are still continuing. Since 2008, visa facilitation and readmission agreements entered into force, and since 2009, there was a start of Eastern Partnership, and as all of my colleagues from EP countries here, we are practicing more for more approach since 2011. So what is the overall assessment of Ukraine in the European integration process? Briefly, in this table, you might see that we gained some results on association agreement. In December 2011, the negotiations, including DCFTA, were finalized, but still we are waiting for signing this agreement. The action plan and the association agreement was also established from year to year. Visa facilitation agreement, that's very important topic for Ukraine, and it entered into force in 2008, and the readmission agreements since January 2010. It's also important to know that Ukraine also joined the European Energy Community, and the negotiations we still have on European Common Aviation Area. Talking about technical and financial support which Ukraine receives from the European Union. So it's worth noting that Ukraine is the biggest beneficiary of ENPI funds, and the total amount for 2007-2013 is around 964 million euros. Well, you see, for example, what is the amount for other countries. So the help of this technical and financial assistance is, of course, to promote the European aspirations of Ukraine, to support reforms and promote adaptation of institutional development. The budget for 2011-2013 is very much actual, and among the priority areas, the important place is given, of course, to sustainable development, then to the facilitation of the entry into force, the association agreement, and the important place is also given to good governments and the rule of law. We might also note that technical and financial assistance even shifted with Eastern Partnership, and some new funds were allocated. But actually, how to measure all this support? How to understand what actually the results of such a policies in Ukraine? So in this presentation, I would like to use to illustrate what actually the assessment is the European Integration Index for EP countries. It first was presented during the third Civil Society Forum, which was held last year, and it actually helps us to understand three dimensions: the linkage dimension, the approximation dimension, and the management dimension of EP countries. So here I would present the results of the pilot edition, and it's November 2011. As I already mentioned, here we see the table of all EP countries, and I would like to focus upon, of course, Ukrainian case. Here we see those results, but it's difficult to understand because they include lots, of course, of positions. So to understand the complexity of it, I would just provide you a short summaries. So Ukraine is demonstrating notable success in linkage dimension. Namely, this is political dialogue and trade and economic integration. But what is going on with the bad situation is that we are showing actually very bad business conditions. So in market economy, we are showing the worst results, and also we are showing the third worst results in governance quality. Actually, this would help us to understand the difficulties Ukraine is facing with the linkage and approximation scatter plot graphic. What this basically means, we have the trade line. Yes, and we see that Ukraine is standing apart from this line, the balancing line. What does it explain? That Ukraine, of course, enjoy some intensive political dialogue, but it could, of course, do better in democracy and rule of laws. Ukraine is advanced in terms of trade and economic integration, and it already has those negotiations, but as I said, business climate is among the worst. it's always showing that Ukraine has not made the best use of its stronger records and more advanced level of cooperation with EU compared to other countries. I will just come back again to this graph so to make you really understand that the thing that Ukraine is standing so apart from the common line means that there are certain disbalances, meaning that it has not balanced situation of linkage and approximation. What society thinks about it? We're coming to the second point for the lack of time. More than a half of population actually supports the idea of European integration. So 51 and 2% would say yes to European integration of Ukraine. You can see this in dynamics for 2002-2011. Will Ukraine lose or win in the case of joining the European Union? 43% would say that Ukraine win, 28.2 would say that it lose, and 28 and 8 actually doesn't really know. It's difficult for them to answer. But how they assume whether Ukraine is actually the European country? There are different dimensions, and most of all Ukrainian people would say that Ukraine is the European country in dimensions of geography, history. Then it comes less and less with culture, politics, social and economic situation. We see that for the economic situation, 77.6 would not agree with this. So that is pointing us to the main obstacles which Ukraine has in this integration process. And it remains the same since this public opinion poll which was held even in 2008, because the previous ones are coming from 2011, 2012. So yes, this is a low level of economic development and the slow reforms transformations. It's a high level of corruption and the low level of democratic practices. So those problems which we see on domestic levels, of course, are significant threats to Ukraine's future development and, of course, its integration. Recent research are really showing that the weaker country is in democratic practices and economics, so the harder it's to implement those European changes. The cost of adaptation in countries with developed economies are lower than in countries with the regime where government is actually trying to control economy and society. This, of course, is leading us to the point that the external factors that would contribute to the European integration of Ukraine are not enough, yes, for the short run to manage with problems we have. The prospects of EU membership of Ukraine, they are not presented in any of documents. And this is one of the problem that many experts are showing, that it's about really system of incentives, yes. So without really proposing a country to enter the European Union, it's very hard to expect a deep internalization, right, and changes on institutional level, which is of course important if we are dealing with EU integration. And EU is not active enough with its position in the region, and it doesn't really want to deal with when it comes to to the situation with Russia. And the last one, those were questions to the previous speaker, to Norica Nicolai, and she's actually commented pretty well on why European Union doesn't really want to change its position from stabilization power to more transformative power, why it doesn't really want to be that much active, and why the economic interests when it comes to Russia are the priority, not the democracy one, of course. So thank you for your attention. That would be nice to hear your questions afterwards, as far as I understand.
Georgia was occupied by Soviet Russia in 1921, becoming Georgian Soviet Socialist Republic and a part of Soviet Union. After independence in 1991, post-Soviet countries and also Georgia had very big problems and economic crisis. Being on the border of Europe and Asia meant for Georgian society and the country as a whole that the problem, whether to belong to Europe or not, was always very topical. But integration to Europe has always been a priority. It was in 1992 that the relations between the European Union and Georgia started, and the EU was one of the first to assist Georgia in its early years of transition. The European Commission opened its delegation to Georgia in 1995, but the relations intensified in 2003 after the Rose Revolution, when the new government introduced some economic and democratic reforms. The cornerstone of European Union and Georgia relations is the Partnership and Cooperation Agreement, which was included in 1996 and entered into force in 1999. With this document, the European Union and its member states from the one part and Georgia from the other part have established a partnership and have agreed about some points, such as the political dialogue between Georgia and European Union and the cooperation about some legislative, economical, financial or technological issues. Another important step was the new foreign policy for the European Union and as well the Georgia European Neighborhood Action Plan, which was adopted in 2006. And with this plan set out some priorities Georgia's government had to pay more attention to. This was rule of law, for human rights and other fundamental freedoms, the cooperation in the field of justice, security and freedom. Since 1999, Georgia has been the beneficiary of the European Union general system of preferences that removed custom duties from some of the Georgian exports to the European Union countries. And since 2005, Georgia became a beneficiary of the second special intensive arrangement. Within the European Union neighborhood policy, the Eastern Partnership was held in 2009, and during the summit, the European Union proposed to its partners new association agreements and as well easier travel to European Union. This is one of the perspectives of Georgia because in 2012 started the dialogue about visa liberalization, and this means visa-free travel for Georgian citizens in European Union countries. It's important to underline the help of European Union during and after the war in Georgia in 2008. The European Commission granted Georgia €5 million in order to lighten the burden of the war, and in addition, European Union sent the monitoring mission in order to monitor the withdrawal of Russian troops from South Ossetia and Abkhazia. And it was very important for Georgia because this was the only international body in the zone, because soon after the war, Russia put veto on the extension of United Nations monitoring missions in Georgia. The political stability in Georgia is very important for the European Union, and one of the main issues Saakashvili's government was criticized for was the power of president after the revolution and the new constitution. And because of that, in order to change the political system and give more power from the presidency to the government and the parliament began constitutional reform in 2010, and the changes will enter into force in 2013. And Tbilisi has even invited Venice Commission, and the feedback about changes were mostly positive. Another important issue is the democracy in the country, and I think that the elections held in Georgia in October in 2012 was a real sign of the developing democracy in the country. I have to say that there are many points the new government has to pay more attention. This is freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and democratic media, and also the agricultural sector. And internal conflicts the most important for European Union and Georgia. So to sum up, I would like to speak about public opinion. More than 70% of Georgians say that they would vote for Georgia's European Union membership. And the war in South Ossetia and Abkhazia has only served to reinforce the idea that the future of Georgia lays in Europe and not in the post-Soviet area. More than 50% of Georgia sees themselves as cultural European and agree with the statement of late Prime Minister Zurabzhania in his speech before the Council of Europe in 1996. I'm European and therefore I'm Georgian and therefore I'm European.
As everybody look a little bit tired, can you please tell me what is a big mistake in my first slide? I will talk about we being a member of EU, not partner. So sorry about this mistake. We're not partners. So as you know, 3 topics. 5 minutes we have, yes. So very shortly, we entered the EU in 2004, joined Eurozone in 2011. If we talk about Estonian and EU policy, we have a document for 4 years. Then we talk about the current problem, which we see as fragmented market, and we talk about the goal, which is free competitive market. Free competitive market that has 4 strong EU cornerstones that we all know about, and also the connection with taking down the custom barriers. And I will tell you about it right away. The slides that now will follow, they are strongly mine, Vootala, and Marjali's point of view. And they mostly rely on the fact that we in Estonia consider ourselves strong in e-systems, building and developing the e-systems. So I will bring out these topics mainly. So what we want to do in EU, we want to help improving the digital capabilities. And this means that the citizens and entrepreneurs inside EU could use electronic services. They say that it will, if we would do it, then in EU there will be per year 30,000 new workplaces. So there's a lot to improve. What are the challenges? We basically have no online authentication regulation inside EU. Correct me if I'm wrong. We have a directive from year 1999 that says that in theory we can sign documents in cross-border, but actually this is not possible. I know that in Estonia there are some companies who are trying to solve this problem so that, for example, I'm in Estonia and you are in your country and we can sign a document without visiting each other's countries, so we save a lot of time and money. Seems normal, yeah. Also, updating the data protection regulations, which means that due to the internet society and where information is accessible, we have to have better protection. When it comes to information inside EU, I strongly feel that all citizens and entrepreneurs also have to have access to information that is outside their own countries, and they have to get that information in their own language. Otherwise, it's very hard to protect themselves in court in cases of conflicts or some other problems. Online public procurement system. I don't know how is it in your countries, but in Estonia it works very well, and we think that it should work very well inside EU also. for the companies to sell their products or services betterly. Also, with the free movement of financial services, there's a lot to progress, especially with the electronic payment systems. And also, what I strongly believe in is that we should have less papers, so we should have some online invoices system. What I like very much is that we also try to develop the European research area called DERA, which means that innovation-oriented companies will be, how to say, boosted. And also they are trying to create cross-border venture capital funds, which will support startup companies. Public opinion, very shortly. Before joining, we were the most Eurosceptic country. What people were afraid of, they were afraid that we will lose our national identity, the prices will go up, which did, and the local brain will go outside. We had referendum in 2003. As you can see, 66% supported joining the EU, which I think it's quite high. One picture symbolizes what older people thought. During the years, we can say that more and more people are supporting being in the EU. And also we have, I think it's good that we have less those people who have no opinion at all. So, maybe the last 2 points are more interesting. In 2011, joining the Eurozone, strong criticism to different problems. As we heard previously what happened in Belgium, something similar happened to Estonia. All the milk prices went up, so all people went very angry. Also sugar prices and coffee. Everybody said that the Prime Minister is guilty. And also there is a strong opposition towards supporting Greece. Right now we can say that 53% of people find it good to belong to the EU. So overall positive or neutral image. But still only some 54% of people think that, or no, 42% of people think that what we say in EU, it counts. So I think people are not very strongly convinced that what we do here has a big impact in our country. Problems that the EU does not recognize, as the former speaker who sat there told, the dangers of growing energy import from Russia, but I think it's not only our worry. So in general, that's all. Thank you.
Taking also into consideration that the fact that we are here all the liberals, so the main objective of my party, of the Liberal Party from Moldova, and the general of the Republic of Moldova, it's on the short and the long term, it's the European integration of our country. The difference between Moldova and, for example, Ukraine, we have the official documents where is signed and where is we have this kind of objective like European integration. So it's not only on TVs or on the streets. First of all, like last year, Moldova, it's the head of it's remaining on the front runner regarding the Eastern Partnership. Moldova can be called the most willing reformer on the Eastern Partnership. Due to the progress it has achieved, the most areas covered. The most covered areas, what should be reformed in our countries. I mean, the growing political, economical, and social ties between each of the 6 countries of European Partnership and the EU. I mean, the structures and the institutions in the Eastern Partnership concerning towards European Union standards and in line with European requirements, European Union requirements. Moldova advanced, over the last year, Moldova advanced key reforms related to European integration despite a 3-year political deadlock over electing the president. So we are very happy that we already elected. It was last year that we elect the unpolitical person, it's Nicolai. Also, Moldova has achieved progress in negotiating an association agreement with the EU. And also, we are very happy that Moldova has previously closed 23 of 25 chapters, remaining 2 being related to the deep and comprehensive free trade agreement and common air spațiu comun de common aviation area. Unfortunately, the idea of European integration has lost the deep support of the voters. And, for example, polls showing an important decline in support from around 75% in 2007 to only 52% in 2012. This declining affinity for the European Union has numerous reasons. For example, one of the reasons are the crisis in Europe, the lack of the concrete benefits at the level of the ordinary Moldavian, such as visa-free travel, growing support for a Russian-led customs union, and negative EU rhetoric from the main opposition party, the Communist Party. So we are the strong opposition, and they are very unit. Also, we are happy that Moldova is far ahead other Eastern Partnership countries where deep and comprehensive democracy is concerned. This is due to continued efforts in such areas as elections, human rights, quality of public administration, accountability. We are still working on the areas like anti-discrimination policy and combating corruption and organized crime. Last year, Moldova has signed it, not last year, this year, and before to close the plenary session, Moldovan Parliament signed it, and the government approved the law about the anti-discrimination, about the we call it the law about the equality of chance. I mean, it doesn't matter which sexual orientation, the color of the skin, and that's all. But whatever, there's a lot of the big part of Moldavians, they were confused why the Moldova should sign this law. In case when, if you take into consideration that in our constitution, it's we have this, it's appointed in it already, that everybody are equal in front of the law. So another attempt is being made. Sorry, I lost my. Okay, so the European Union has increasingly support the judicial reform process and smartly combined appraisal with emphasizing to need to do the necessary homework. We are a lot of to do in the judiciary area. We are trying to do, but it's still we have a big problem with the judiciary area. It's very dependent of the political political parties, let's say, if you can say that. Another good part is that Moldova has successfully implemented the majority of reforms related to the visa liberalization process. Together with Ukraine, both countries have implemented visa liberalization action plan and have already seen 2 monitoring reports by European Union. Nevertheless, Moldova has performed somewhat better than Ukraine, where domestic reform efforts are concerned. After all, this area has been very much in the spotlight of media and public debates in Moldova, given the intensity offered by visa-free travel. Our government, or one of the representatives of the government is Mr. Leancă, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs and European Integration, declared that if on the end of the 2012 the Moldova will not get this liberalization visa treaty, he will leave this post. But the Prime Minister Filat, he didn't accept this thing. And we truly believe that this treaty will be signed in on the near future, because as you know, the Moldova, especially in these 3 years, since 2009, it's when the government became the Alliance for the European Integration, the most important politicians are looking to Moldova and trying to support our integration, and with like, I don't know, and practical, and with the money, of course. We hope that next year we will sign the treaty about regarding the common aviation area. Also, the President of European Commission declared if we will do well the homework, this will result with free liberalization visa for Moldova. So we will be allowed to travel in all Europe without the visa.
In year 2004, the activity of Eastern Partnership Program towards Belarus has been temporarily stopped due to impairment in political situation in the city, or in the country, sorry. After the 2010 presidential election in Belarus, a harsh economic decline has begun. For a few days, Belarusian ruble has been devaluation for approximately 300%, which has become a new world record. This situation has caused large social distributions. People went out of the streets for the demonstration of protest against such economic policy. The demonstration lasted for several months, but due to the several violent displays of them that took place, people have become afraid to express their opinion, and the manifestations were stopped. Since that time, the situation remains pretty much the same. It should mention that every single day the number of political prisons in my country is growing greatly. While some time ago there were some significant reasons behind each case, today the change have become absurd. For example, Andrei Gaidukov, an activist for civil society from Novopolotsk, has been arrested and jailed for government reason. Also, the real reason for his detention was a copy of independent newspaper. Also, it is necessary to say that the European Union is forming this so-called blocked list and listing Belarusian government officials. What we need for EU and Belarus relations renewal, it's necessary to change that government to carry out economical and political reforms in Belarus. Only then in the future Belarus could become a competent European Union member. But this is only light from all required process because Belarus stay on the level of 1970 is terms of economic and political. If the government in Belarus change, it will require still very much work of different problems. Opposition forces inside the country are very weak because of strong dictatorship. That's why Belarus is need for external support in storage for freedom. The European Union gives conditional support to alternative forces in Belarus, but it is still not enjoyed. Okay, thank you. Enough.